Hey guys, it's Joe from AmericanTrucks, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at the MBRP Black Series 3-inch dual exhaust system with the middle side exit fitting all 15 and newer 50 F-150s. This is going to be the perfect kit for you if you're looking for an exhaust that's a little bit more budget focused than the average exhaust system out there, and it's seriously going to increase the volume and style on the side of your truck. So right off the bat here, as you guys heard in this sound clip, this thing is actually pretty loud. I'm gonna give it a little bit higher than we usually give the Black Series exhaust from MBRP. I'm gonna go with a 4 out of 5 on our Wake the Neighbor scale. Now, this thing was definitely louder than I expected it to be, and after reading some of the reviews online, it seems like most of our customers would agree with me that this thing can definitely take you by surprise. If you're looking for a sleeper exhaust system, something that's comfortable while you're driving on the highway, this is definitely not the one for you. This is for the guy out there that really wants to hear that 5.0 motor. So what is this thing made out of, and what is giving us that solid 4 out of 5 on the Wake the Neighbor scale? Well, this thing is made out of 3-inch diameter aluminized steel, which that's going to bring into play the budget-friendly side of this exhaust. It's not made out of that high-quality stainless that you would pay a pretty penny for, so this stuff is definitely going to be tough. And in fact, they even coat it in a black powder coating, which is going to add to the durability a little bit more, but most importantly, it's going to save you a little bit of money by going with something like this. So this is going to be the Black Series, right? And what that means is it's got that black powder coating on there. That's the only difference between this exhaust and the Installer Series version of that, both aluminized steel. But again, on top of that black powder coating adding to the durability, that's also going to add to the looks. As you can see with this lead foot gray color on our 18 F-150, this looks amazing, right? These tips here, black powder coated, 4-inch slash cut embossed with the MBRP logo. It's just the perfect touch basically to any side of any F-150 out there, and personally it kind of reminds me of those good old SVT Lightnings with the side exit exhaust like this. I really like this setup, and on top of that, I think it adds to the volume with the tips being a little bit further up the truck than if they were to exit all the way at the back. Now, most of the sound that's going to come out of this kit though is going to come down to that MBRP straight through muffler. Now we're going to put it side by side next to the factory muffler in just a second. You're going to see just how much less restrictive this thing is, as it's only about a quarter of the size of that factory muffler, and it's going to be less of a restriction. It's going to be less baffling in there, and that's where most of the noise and basically where the 4 out of 5 on this exhaust kit is going to be coming from. So there is one potential downside with this exhaust, and it's not MBRP's fault or this exhaust fault in general. It's just the positioning of the tips, and if you do have aftermarket running boards or a side step, Nerf bar, something like that, take a look at this spacing here. You want to make sure these are going to fit on your truck before you pull the trigger on a kit like this. So just a word of caution. So pricing for our MBRP exhaust here, and it's going to drop in right around $600, and in my opinion, and in a lot of our customers' opinions, in fact, that is going to be well worth the money. If you take a look at the website, this is currently sitting at around 4.7, 4.8 stars on the website with a bunch of reviews on it. This is a really high quality product. Now, you are going to be paying a little bit more than just a regular old aluminized steel single rear exit exhaust, but the pricing isn't going to be too bad for a dual exhaust with this side exit here, and that black powder coating just adds a little bit of extra value on there. If you were looking to go with something a little bit cheaper but get the noise, again, the MBRP Installer Series is going to be the same exact thing without that black powder coating on there. That's probably the one I'd recommend if you were looking to go with a little bit more of a cost-effective option. So let's get down to the meat and potatoes here. Let me show you how to get this installed on your truck. But before I do, I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. Should take you about 2 to 3 hours to get this fully installed, even if you're working on the ground. Now, one thing I did want to touch on here is this is intended out of the box for an extended cab truck with the 8-foot bed, so that's going to be the longest wheelbase possible. If you have anything but that, you will have to make a cut to the inlet pipe to get this thing to fit on your F-150, but we're going to show you how that works in just a second here. So without any further ado, let me show you what tools you'll need and how it's done. Tools we use for this install are going to include an impact, ratchet, pry bar, basic socket set here including 15, 14, and 13 millimeter sockets, 8mm Allen key, a U-joint, 13mm wrench, 14mm wrench. Now, like I said, we will need to make a cut to our inlet pipe and we need to mark our cut. We need to go over to the saw, and for that you'll need some safety glasses. An exhaust hanger removal tool is also really helpful. Tape measure to mark a cut, and some spray lubricant like PB Blaster is always a good idea. Now, the only thing not pictured here, like I said earlier, will be the saw. So first step here for our install, we're gonna grab our 13mm socket on the U-joint. We're gonna loosen up the flange up near our catalytic converters, and that will basically let our exhaust sit in the exhaust hanger isolator. So at that point, all we're gonna do is lubricate them, slide the whole thing back, and since we're on a lift, we'll be able to pull the whole exhaust out in one piece. Now, if you are working on the ground, you won't have as much room as I do. You might have to make a couple cuts to get this out, but it's just as simple as that. So this one is a little bit tough to get to. But it should come right out. And same thing goes with this one. The U-joint here is almost a must if you want to use the impact. If you're using a ratchet, it should clear no problem. So now our exhaust is loose at the front. We just need to lubricate these rubber hanger isolators so we can slide our exhaust back and out. For that, I'm gonna use PB Blaster here. You could use white lithium grease. As you can see, this one has had on it before. So we're just gonna give this a shot here on both sides. So now we can take our exhaust hanger removal tool and we're just gonna work that out. So now we have two more hangers supporting our exhaust, and all we're gonna do for this one right above our muffler is grease it up. For now, you can see it doesn't have that barb at the end, so we're gonna leave this in just to support our exhaust. We're gonna grease up the other one, and then we can slide this whole thing back. So this last one here, right on our tailpipe, again, we're just gonna hit it with some PB Blaster. And again, this doesn't have the barb on it either. So now we should be good to push this whole exhaust back and pull it off of our truck. Now, if you need to, you could use the pry bar to help push this exhaust back end off the truck. Once you work it out over the axle tube, you can now lay it on the ground, and next to our new MBRP kit, you can easily see all the differences and frankly, the improvements that our new MBRP system is going to be making for our truck. So I figured we start at the front here and just work our way down through all the differences here and all the improvements from our new exhaust system. So starting with our inlet tube, before we even get to the resonator here, we're gonna be upping the diameter from 2.5 inches all the way up to 3 inches. That's going to help with our flow in general. Now, our resonator here, completely deleted. That's gonna help improve our sound. Moving down through our inlet pipe toward our muffler here, you can see with these two mufflers side by side, we are losing so much bulk off of this big restrictive factory muffler here, going over to that sleek, less restrictive, smaller, frankly, MBRP muffler is going to create a lot more noise over this factory kit, and it's gonna sound good as well. So, moving on, out the back of our muffler, we have a dual exit there rather than a single exit. Now, this is a 3-inch pipe from factory. Same thing over on the MBRP, but this time we're getting 2 of them. Now, it's also black powder coated, which is there to help add to the looks, but it's also going to serve as a layer of protection from the elements. Now, a big difference, where that pipe exits. The factory one behind the rear tire, our new MBRP in front of the rear tire, and we do it in style with our MBRP 4-inch dual exhaust tip / cut embossed with the MBRP logo. That's gonna be a huge upgrade over the factory exhaust, which just basically has a cut pipe on the end of it. So that's gonna be it as far as differences go between these two. That MBRP system over there is gonna make some huge upgrades to our F-150, and it's gonna make the 5.0 sound come through a lot better. So before we head back to our truck, there is a little bit of extra work we have to do here. That inlet pipe is a little bit too long. This kit is designed out of the box for an extended cab truck with the 8-foot bed. So if you have anything shorter than that, you will have to trim that inlet pipe. And for our Super Crew with the 5.5-foot bed, we're gonna trim that length down to 29 3/4 inches. But if you have anything other than that, there's a helpful guide in the instruction manual that tells you exactly what size that pipe needs to be trimmed to. So we're gonna take this apart a little bit, make our mark, head over to the saw, trim that down, and then we can start installing our exhaust. So now we're back under the truck from the saw. We can grab our inlet pipe and the flange that comes included in the kit, and we're just gonna run that down over our pipe. We're gonna get it in place just like that, and then we can install this to the factory flange, and we're gonna bolt it down using the 14mm hardware that comes in the kit. So before we tighten anything down, we're just gonna build the exhaust on the truck, and at the back of our inlet pipe, we're just gonna put the muffler on with one of the 3-inch clamps included in the kit. And when this gets installed, it should be angled approximately 30 degrees, just like that. So now we're gonna take our tailpipe with the hanger on it, get a clamp on that, push up on this, get it started in the hanger isolator, and in the back of our muffler. And that'll support the rest of our exhaust while we get the other tailpipe and clamp in place. Now, before we actually install the other pipe, the pipe that we just installed does have another hanger on it. That's gonna sit right about there, and you can see where these two meet up with that rubber isolator. Now, to install that, obviously we don't have any threaded holes here, but the kit does give you some nut clips. So we're gonna get those pushed in and then tighten down our hanger with the 13mm hardware. Now the 13mm bolt at the top is pretty open. You can get that with a ratchet, but this one down here is a little bit tighter just because it's actually behind that hanger. So just gonna come in here old school with the wrench and tighten that down. Now to finish this off, obviously we have to come in here with the isolator, so spray these down with some lubricant, PV Blaster, and then you can slide that on the tailpipe, and then over the hanger, and that is good to go. Now before we hang up our other tailpipe, there is a couple of things we have to do. First, the one that's not as obvious is gonna be this nut clip here. This mounting tab that I'm installing this to is basically going to secure the two pipes together. So I'm gonna make sure that that lines up right there. And then secondly, we can put on a clamp and get this started in our muffler. So now we can conjoin the two pipes together with a 13mm bolt. We're just gonna thread that through the top one and into that nut clip on the bottom pipe. Then just like the hanger, we could take our 13mm wrench and tighten that down. So now we're looking pretty good. We're just gonna get our tips on here. And I'm just gonna make sure that they're all the way in and level. And then we can come in here with the 8mm Allen key and tighten those down. I recommend you do this one closest toward the rear first, because obviously if there's another tip right here, this would be a lot harder to get at. Then we're gonna do the same thing on the other one. And if they touch the bodywork right now, that's okay. We're gonna get these tilted in the correct manner in just a second when we go and tighten down all the clamps. Obviously though, don't let it scratch your truck. So now we have our tips installed. Make any adjustments as needed to these pipes to make sure everything is lined up and seated where you want it. Then we can come in with a 15mm socket and tighten down all of our clamps. We're gonna do the same thing for this clamp in front of our muffler. And then the final step here, switch back to the 14mm socket on the U-joint as well as the 14mm wrench, and we can lock in this flange. So guys, that is gonna do it for my review and install of the MBRP Black Series 3-inch dual exhaust system with the middle side exit fitting all 15 and newer 5.0 F-150s. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe for more like this one. Keep it right here at American Trucks for all things F-150.